Now let's proceed to the historical background of Noli Me Tangere. Rizal's darkest winter. The gloomy winter of 1886 in Berlin was Rizal's darkest winter. This is somehow related to the Kalamba Agrarian, but during these times, since hindi pa nakakabalik ng Pilipinas si Rizal, is hindi niya pa na-discover yung mga main problems na nag-cause nitong agrarian. So it was memorable in the life of Rizal for two reasons. First, it was a painful episode for he was hungry, sick, and despondent in a strange city. Second, it brought him a great joy after enduring so much suffering because his first novel, Noli Me Tangere, came off the press in March 1887. The writing of the Noli Me Tangere. Accordingly, Rizal was inspired by Juan Luna's masterpiece, the Spolarium. Luna's Spolarium conveys the plight of the vanquished who were nothing but the spoils of the tyrants and the kings, and it now hangs at the lobby of Juan Luna Hall of the Department of Foreign Affairs at Padre Faura, Manila. Now let's proceed to the timeline of his journey when he wrote the Noli Me Tangere. In Madrid, particularly on June 2, 1882, he began to write the Noli Me Tangere, where he also finished half of it. When he went to Paris, he wrote the one-fourth more there. In Germany, he finished the whole novel. Now let us proceed to the man who saved Noli Me Tangere. It was Maximo Viola, the friend of Rizal from Bulacan, who arrived in Berlin at the height of Rizal's despondency and loaned him the needed funds to publish the novel. He was called the Savior of Noli because he saved the printing expenses, where Rizal deleted certain passages in his manuscript, including a whole chapter, specifically the Elias and Salome. When Rizal went to Germany, he discovered a printing shop which charged the lowest rate, that is 300 pesos for 2,000 copies of the novel. So it was the Berliner Buchdruckerei acting Gesellschaft. On February 21, 1887, the Noli Me Tangere was completed, and on March 29, 1887, the Noli Me Tangere came off the press. In a letter of Felix Hidalgo, Rizal gave several reasons for writing the book. The first is to reply to the insults that for so many centuries have been heaped on us and our country. The second is to describe the social condition, the life there, especially in the Philippines, our beliefs, our hopes, our desires, our complaints, and our sorrows. The third is to unmask hypocrisy that under the cloak of religion has impoverished and brutalized us. And the fourth is to distinguish the true religion from the false, from the superstitious. Fifth is to lift the curtain in order to show what is behind the deceitful and glittering words of our government. Sixth, to tell our compatriots our defects, our vices, our culpable and cowardly complacency with the miseries over there. 7, according to Rizal's letter to Blumentritt, is to answer all the false concepts which have been formed against the Filipinos and all the insults which have been intended to belittle us. And the eighth purpose, according to Rizal's letter to Vicente Barrantes, it is to ask for reforms so that the little good that there is may be redeemed. The ninth, according to Rizal's letter to Marcelo H. Del Pilar, it is to steer the patriotism for the Philippines. Literally translated, the Latin words Noli Me Tangere means touch me not. It is taken from John 20:17, when Mary Magdalene holds on to Jesus and he tells her not to touch him. Rizal used the words Noli Me Tangere because the book contains things nobody in the Philippines had dared to speak about because they were delicate matters and could not touch by anyone. So these are the symbols of the cover on the novel. The cross means the sufferings of the Filipinos. The pomelo blossoms and laurel leaves means honor and fidelity. The silhouette of a Filipina symbolizes Maria Clara. The burning torch means rage and passion. The sunflowers is for enlightenment. Bamboo stalks for resilience. Man with hairy feet symbolizes priests who use religion in a dirty way. The chains symbolizes slavery, whips is for the cruelties, and helmet of the Guardia Civil is for the arrogance of those in authority. And the original Noli was written in Spanish, not Tagalog, and the earliest English translation of Noli Me Tangere in the American period is entitled Social Cancer.
Noli Me Tangere is the story of Juan Crisostomo Ibarra, scion of a wealthy family who returns home to San Diego from his 7 years education in Europe. During his absence, his father Don Rafael Ibarra was imprisoned and died for the accidental death of a Spanish tax collector. He was denied a Christian burial by Father Damaso because he had stopped going to confession long before his death and was a subscriber to liberal publication. The young Ibarra finds the condition in his country unchanged since he had left for Europe, inflamed with a desire to educate his people and bring progress to his hometown. He established a school patterned after the schools in Europe. He gained support from the local government, but the religious order within the town views the project with suspicion. They began to see Ibarra as a threat to their power, with Damaso and Salvi in particular seeing him as a rival who must put it in his place. During the laying of a school cornerstone, an attempt is made in Ibarra's life, but he is saved by Elias, the mysterious boatman whom he had earlier rescued from the depth during a picnic at the lake. The friars constantly harass and persecute Ibarra at San Diego. At one gathering, the vilification hurled against his dead father almost provoked Ibarra to kill Father Damaso, but his hand stayed by his fiancée Maria Clara. He is excommunicated by the friar and later absolved by the archbishops. Finally, a false rebellion is plotted through a forged documents, and Ibarra implicated as its leader. Unwittingly, his fiancée had lent support to the plotters by providing them with a specimen of his signature when she was forced to exchange his love letter from some letters which contained the hidden secret of her paternity. Ibarra is imprisoned and later rescued once again by Elias, whom hides in a bangka covered with zacate and rows him under a barrage of gunfires. Elias wounded and sacrificed his life for his beloved friend. Ibarra quietly buries Elias in the woods belonging to his family. Then he flees the country, leaving the impression that he had died from the civil guards' bullets. Distraught, Maria Clara is urged Father Damaso to marry Spaniard Alfonso Linares. He refuses and enters the nunnery of the poor Clarice instead.
Let's proceed to the characters of the novel Noli. To start with, we have Ibarra or Simon, first shown as the well-mannered young man who arrived from his studies abroad. He is gracious and respectful, but sensitive and quick to strike at anyone who would malign the good name of his dead father. In the Fili, Ibarra reappears as Simon, who is an influential jeweler. Next, Elias, Ibarra's mysterious friend, who appears every time Ibarra is in trouble. However, due to the tragedies that had happened to his family, Elias felt abandoned and desolate and became an outlaw. As such, he could freely comb the hills and towns in search of the descendants of the man who caused his family misfortune. Next is Don Anastasio. He gave up his studies for love, but eventually he got widowed and orphaned. To avoid self-pity, idleness, and the temptation of the cockpit, he concentrated on his books. Upon Ibarra's arrest and imprisonment, Tasia's effort to testify to Ibarra's innocence proved futile. His long walk to town, compounded with excitement and anger at the obvious conspiracy against Ibarra, exhausted him and found dead at his house. Next is we have Maria Clara, Ibarra's fiancée, daughter of Doña Pia Alba de los Santos and Father Damaso, while Don Santiago had always regarded her as his child. She is Ibarra's inspiration in the planning and execution of his projects and the two novels. Next in line is Father Father Damaso Verdolagas, the former parish priest of San Diego, a Franciscan, is easily the anti-hero in Noli. He is depicted as an uncouth, bigoted, power-mad ingrate, and the personification of depraved evil among the friars. He had no respect for any authority except for his religious superior. So now let's move on to the supporting characters. Other symptoms of social cancer are indicated among the victims of poverty and ignorance. There is Sisa, driven by her sufferings to insanity. Her son's 10-year-old Basilio survives the family travails and pursue a medical career in Philly, while 7-year-old Crispin becomes a fatal target of the blows of the parish caretakers. The victims of injustices are equally pathetic figures, just like Cabezang Tales, driven by outlawry by circumstances that reveal the roots of agrarian malice in the country. So let's proceed to the last characters, the undesirable. These characters portray tar-pervading cancer in the novels of Rizal. The most harmless looking among them erode society with their base intentions, and nobody takes them serious. The line is Capitan Tiago, where he had come up to his fortune and social title by marrying Doña Pia Alba. He does not consider himself as native, for Capitan Tiago tries to imitate European in dress and manner. Aligning himself with Spaniards, he would exploit the natives. His subordinate considered him as martinet and tyrant. Also, the poor thought him as cruel, ruthless, and ready to profit from all of their misery. The other undesirables are the Espadaños, and Doña Victorina is another native who tries to act more Spanish than the Spaniards. She is almost illiterate and unintelligent. She speaks a little Spanish, but nonetheless, she considers herself as superior to most people because of her pretenses to Spanish affinity.
Noli Me Tangere talks about the romantic feeling, the lightness, and the intelligence that every character holds. But despite the positive scenarios that we can read in the novel, this book by Rizal was created so that Filipinos would be awakened through the truth, seek freedom, and liberation. This novel is only fiction, but it depicts a hidden truth about the happenings in the society that includes injustices, brutality, and corruption that existed under the Spanish colonial authority. It was a wake-up call for the Filipinos to take action, to stand up and fight against the slavery treatment of the friars by the English. Through the writings of Rizal, it added fuel to the burning desire of every Filipino that pushes them to aim for freedom, to fight for their rights, and to awaken those people who are fully blinded by the Spaniards. So now, let us relate the issues from Noli Me Tangere to the contemporary issues here in the Philippines. First is the sexual violence against women. In the novel, a lot of women were abused by friars, and unfortunately, this issue is also present up until now in our society, and it shows multiple cases here in the Philippines. And luckily, there are several government strategies and laws to protect not just women but also all gender against any form of violence. Second is the poverty. Every now and then, poverty is still present due to the uncontrolled rise in population, slow rate of economic growth, and low level of income in the nation. It is a big challenge to the government on how they could prevent it or end it. The third one is the corruption. It is one of the biggest social issues that the Philippine government is facing, including the corruption inside the church back in the time of the Spaniards, and I think in the present day as well. We don't know. Rizal exposes the corrupt friars that uses the Catholic religion to manipulate the Filipino people. The fourth one is the racism. The novel emphasizes the discrimination that every pure-blooded Filipino received from the Spaniards. They instill in the minds of everyone that white people are more superior and privileged than brown-skinned people. While discrimination nowadays still exists even at home. You can hear it from your family, friends, and strangers. The last one is the abuse of power. The friars are very fond of abusing their power, and they use their religion to gain the sympathy of the people and the power to rule and dictate. This issue is still present in the society. We can't deny that. They use their position in the government to achieve their selfish ambitions.
So, nakita natin partner ang kabuuan ng No Limit Tangere. Kung ano nga ba ang layunin ni Dr. Jose Rizal kung bakit niya ito isinulat. At ikaw partner, marami ka bang natutunan?
Yes, partner. Marami akong natutunan.
Sa akin partner, nalaman ko na ang itinatampok pala ng nobelang ito ang mga katiwalian o iba't ibang suliraning panlipunan katulad ng mga katiwalian, no? Mga abuso sa kapangyarihan at hindi pagkapantay-pantay dyan sa lipunan at ang mga masasamang epekto nito sa kolonisasyon.
At bilang dagdag ideya, partner, ang mga isyong ito ay hindi limitado sa isang partikular na oras o lugar, ngunit laganap sa iba't ibang lipunan sa buong kasaysayan. Ang intensyon ni Rizal ay ilantad ang mga problemang ito sa konteksto ng kolonyalismong Espanyol, ngunit ang kanyang mensahe ay higit pa sa partikular na panahon na iyon. Sa pamamagitan ng pagbibigay liwanag sa mga kawalang katarungan at kapintasan sa loob ng lipunan, hinihikayat ng No Limit Tangere ang mga mambabasa na pagnilayan ang mga universal na prinsipyo ng katarungan, pagkakapantay-pantay at dignidad ng tao.
Tama partner. Hinihikayat ng nobelang ito ang mga mambabasa na pagnilayan ang kanilang mga aksyon, ang kanilang mga paniniwala para sa ikabubuti ng kanilang bansa.
Sa pamamagitan ng mga tauhan at pangyayari sa nobela, ipinakita ni Rizal ang mga kahihinatnan ng mga aksyon ng mga individual at ang epekto nito sa bansa. Ang mga tauhan sa No Limit Tangere ay kumakatawan sa iba't ibang bahagi ng lipunan, at ang kanilang mga pag-uugali at paniniwala ay sumasalamin sa mas malawak na panlipunang dinamika at sistematikong mga problema na naroroon sa Pilipinas noong panahong iyon.
Tama partner. Malaki talaga ang epekto ng nobelang ito sa lipunang Pilipino. No? Inilantad ng nobelang ito kung ang malupit na realidad ng kolonyal na paghahari at pinukaw ang pambansang kamalayan sa mga Pilipino.
Gayunpaman, ang No Limit Tangere ay naging dahilan ng pagbabago, pampolitika at panlipunan sa Pilipinas. Naging inspirasyon ito sa isang alon ng damdaming makabansa at nagpasigla sa diwa ng revolusyon laban sa kolonyal na paghahari ng Espanya. Ang malakas na pagpuna ng nobela sa umiiral na mga estruktura ng kapangyarihan ay may mahalagang papel sa paghubog ng pagkakinalanlang Pilipino at ang pagnanais ng kalayaan.
Bagamat ang nobelang ito partner ay isang gawang katang-isip lamang, malawak itong kinikilala bilang isang pagpuna sa namamayaning panlipunan at politikal na tanawin sa Pilipinas noong panahon ni Dr. Jose Rizal.
Mahalagang tandaan, partner, na habang ang No Limit Tangere ay sumasalamin sa mga nakalipas na realidad ng lipunang Pilipino, ito ay tumugon din sa mga universal na tema at isyu na maaaring sumasalamin sa mga mambabasa sa iba't ibang yugto ng panahon. Ang pangmatagalang kaugnayan ng nobela ay nakasalalay sa paggalugad nito sa dinamika ng kapangyarihan, kawalan ng katarungang panlipunan, at ang panawagan para sa individual at kolektibong pagkilos upang magdulot ng positibong pagbabago ng ating bansang Pilipinas, partner.
Tama, partner. So, ano bang naramdaman mo, partner, para kay Dr. Jose Rizal na nakita natin ang kabutihang puso niya sa atin bilang Pilipino at isinakripisyo niya ang kanyang buhay para sa bansang Pilipinas?
Yes, partner. Para sa akin, karapat dapat talaga na si Dr. Jose Rizal ang magiging pambansang bayani ng ating Pilipinas, sapagkat ang tunay na pag-ibig ni Rizal ay itong bansang Pilipinas.
Tama, partner. At kailangan nating pahalagahan ang kanyang mga nobela para din sa ating ikabubuti, para makamit natin ang pagbabago sa ating Pilipinas. At yun lang po mga kaibigan. At dito lang nagtatapos ang aming pag-uulat tungkol sa Noli Me Tangere.